Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison. That's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
We were going to call this episode You Once Had What Have You. But we just deleted our last episode on accident somehow in transit.
I'd like to blame someone else because we recorded a whole thing.
The only person who can take the blame is Becca, whose phone recorded it.
But
doesn't matter.
I'd like to shift blame somehow.
I actually thought it was a great dud last time. And I was like, well, whatever. But the Lord didn't want us to be duds.
Maybe. So I'm wondering, how peppy are you feeling today?
Not super pep, but it's all right.
Neither of us have coffee either, so...
It's cold.
It's real cold. And last time, I think you heard from us, there were strange noises afoot in my heater. Those noises got worse, and double worse. And now the heater is broken altogether. It's scheduled for an appointment, but... we're shivering here. The noises you hear are our teeth chattering.
Our teeth chattering in the wind. That's how it feels. Basically. So, what have you been up to, Becca?
Well, we just got through another soup night. And actually, one of the things that got deleted in the last one was the fact that... okay, guys. I already told this story.
This is the definition of humble soup.
It was humble soup night.
Because we already were laughing about the category of recipes that we have in our life just to keep us humble.
Yeah,
and then Becca had a humble soup that humbled her further.
Yeah, humble soup squared night. So
humble devil dog. So humble no one ate it.
Here's what we did, guys. Last week, not last night, but last week, I was actually ahead of the game. I was ahead of the game, and I was running.
Question is, which game was she ahead of?
All the games. I was nailing it everywhere until I didn't. So, Ben was out of town. I was trying to pull off soup night alone, which is fine. You know, like it's not like he comes home and makes the bread anyway. It was fine. But I was doing too many other things. I told Rachel, I tried to get a home run out of a double. And then I got out at third. Or home. I think I got out at home.
You think it was at home?
Because what happened
when she got out was when the Velveeta burned on the bottom of the pan.
Well, so bad because I hate to even say out loud that I used Velveeta anyway.
This is why it's the devil dog humble soup.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was doing too many errands. I was trying to get Christmas party invitations out. Everything had gone wrong. I had double booked the party on top of the Christmas program. I had to reprint the invitations. I was in a hurry to get those out. Then I had printed 4 too few, and I had to go back to Kinko's, and it was a thing. And I felt like I can get this all done. And I had thrown the bread in the oven. I had the soup mostly there. I had to run Judah to his basketball game, and then I decided to run back past Kinko's because I thought I had enough time. And I was doing a soup recipe that I can't quite reconcile it with my conscience anyway. But
it's not her conscience. It's her ego.
Maybe. But
her
everybody
knows the Velveeta in soup that makes it everyone's favorite. But it is one of those recipes that I have to say I don't make it but not because of the Velveeta. I just don't make it because I actually don't care for it. But I know that it is the soup. It is the one that if you make it, the world wants the recipe.
Yeah, they do.
And then you have to do the Velveeta reveal anyways.
Yeah. And so it's hard
because let's take it into account. You cannot get a smooth cheese out of a sharp cheddar.
No.
You cannot. And the one benefit of Velveeta is its smoothness.
Well, and you know what we noticed in our stint in England? When you sort of get out of your homeland and you take a glance back, I realized that actually America at large, we treasure a good smooth melted cheese.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of like we believe in
that.
believe in melted cheese on nachos, on burgers, on pizza. We just like it to be a nice, smooth, melted cheese, which is why I think American cheese got invented, is because it's a smooth melt. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I think that is a piece of
it's key property.
Our national DNA. We approve of it.
But I have to say, nobody does the Velveeta on a pizza.
No, but mozzarella melts smooth.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying... it's not an artificial cheese.
No, I'm not saying only Velveeta melts smooth.
I wanted you all to know that in Idaho, we don't put Velveeta on our pizza. It's not like...
No, heavens.
And also, there are Americans among us who can't do a pump cheese. But
I'm one of those Americans.
Me too. However, but we abide alongside in friendly relationship with those who do.
No, I just mean as a nation, we eat a lot of melted cheese on things. And so... It is a piece of our...
cheese, too, on American Mexi food. Jack, mozzarella, we do a lot of that.
We do. It's like, and I think that we tend to prioritize it. It's like, look at how much box mac do people in this country eat? You know. So anyway, all to say, back to my problems. I'll tell you more of my problems.
Even like an Alfredo, if you ran into a gritty cheese in there, you'd be like,
no,
you'd
be like, what is that?
You failed.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good.
You lost your...
Anyway, so... All to say, I had gotten my big pot of soup there. I had left my girls. I said, here, throw the cheese in, stir it up. Oh, but this recipe, most of the time for soup night, I am starting with fresh ingredients of some sort. I use canned chicken broth. I use, like, canned crushed tomatoes.
I just like to insert, when she said she uses canned chicken broth, I just want you all to hear me say, slacker.
Yeah, Rachel looks down upon me.
Better than bouillon. I am not using home-crafted broths. I will tell you, I do like a good homemade broth. But this idea people have of storing up your stock for future use is...
That's if you
I don't understand your
people.
life. Yeah, like how do you... Because I cook a whole turkey for stock and it barely squeaks us through the current recipe.
But the thing is that most of the time, I'm starting with fresh veg and stuff. Sometimes I cut corners occasionally, and I do buy a bag of frozen chopped onions. I do on soup nights sometimes to cut out the chopping time. However, this particular soup is one that is, it's like cans of cream of chicken soup in there and Velveeta cheese. So put it all together and you have yourself a soup I'm not proud of. But people like it and it's great. So anyway, and it was only the second time I'd ever made it. And I left the girls and I said, here, throw this in and stir it till it melts. And then I dashed out the door again, having left insufficient instructions because I just said, throw the cheese in and stir it till it melts. I also left the burner on too high. And so we have this pot holds, well, last time we talked about this, I think it's 6 gallons-ish of soup.
Becca said 10.
I said 10 last week.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
But it's because I believe that'd be like a full-sized garbage can.
It would be like an oil drum.
Yeah, it'd be better to not have that big of a pot
However,
of soup.
I think 6 is
How
actually...
much Velveeta would you need for that much soup?
I think it's bigger than a 5-gallon bucket. So anyway, it's about as tall and it's definitely slightly wider. So I'm going to go with 6-ish. Rachel's giving me a squinty face. I'm going to go home and I'm going to measure it.
I think you should.
Yeah. Anyway, I might have to come back and apologize for my fish story. However, I think we're talking...
My soup pot is 12 gallons. How big is your soup pot?
I think it was really full. Like I had overestimated how many times to multiply the recipe.
So how are they going to stir to the bottom of that anyway?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I had it on too high.
Without putting your whole hand in the soup.
Well, I come zooming home from Kinko's feeling like I am doing it.
Boy, did I score one for the team.
I am sliding into home plate. It's going to be just great. I walk in the front door. I was on I was on the phone and Belle had been trying to call me, but I was like a block from home, so I didn't answer. You know, like I was just...
I'll be there in a second.
Yeah, I'll be there in a second. I'll talk to her. I pull up and I open the front door to be hit with a smell of burn.
A wall of stank.
That is like... unbelievable.
Acrid.
Unbelievable. And so Bella's like, Mom, this is why I was trying to call you, because she had put in the cheese and stirred it, and then she'd gone off to do something else, and
scorched
it hard.
And the humble soup humbled.
Wow, bad. And you take a bite of it, and it had permeated throughout. It wasn't like, it didn't look burned, but it was truly evil tasting. And so nothing can be done. And people are showing up in like 20 minutes. And you're like, okay, 50.
Will we even be able to get the aroma out?
No,
in that time?
not even. I mean, I just set the whole pot of soup on the back porch and shut the door.
This is our time to check. Is it still there?
Oh, no. I got it washed out, yeah.
Shoo.
No, I didn't leave it there. Well, I mean, I did leave it there too long, but...
I thought you had to go on a trip right then, so I was wondering if it lasted through your trip.
Yeah. It did.
The burned soup briquette, did it freeze?
No, but Dottie didn't even try it. It was like, it was...
When the dogs and squirrels leave it alone, you know you've done right.
And so...
This is time for me to mention, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but I find the humanness of it so precious that in some old Viking settlement, they found a clay pot that had burned cheese on the bottom of it in the dump. Like it got thrown in the garbage heap with burned cheese still stuck on the bottom.
It might have been Velveeta.
Hundreds of years later, the burned cheese lingers.
It's hard to get it out. And the thing is I didn't know how many freshmen coming, but it could be 50, like potentially 50 people showing up for dinner. And I had bread and honey butter and drinks, and that was what I had.
Sparkling conversation and a bad smell in the air.
Nothing like having, and I had a son's basketball game to go to. So I threw the soup onto the back porch, and then, well, I set it on the back porch, and then I thought for a moment, and I called Rachel, who did not pick up
because I didn't know it was an hour of
because I was gonna say, like, what do you do when you got 50 people coming for dinner and you got no dinner
and you got a bag of frozen peas?
So what I did was I quickly called the pizza place and I asked them to help me out with a lot of pizzas in short order. And then I left and I told all the students on my way out, like, sorry guys, entertain yourselves with honey butter and bread. And it was a weird dinner. It was like, have some bread and honey butter and then
stoke up on your carbs
and then chase it down with some pizza. So I ran. I watched a quarter of the basketball game until the pizza was ready, and then I ran and got the pizza and took it home, and it was totally weird. And I don't even know that many of the students knew why. Because they come at sort of different times, and I sort of told some people, and then it was like, anyways, guys, here's a weird dinner.
Hang tight.
So I did that, and I thought, well, I've never had the emergency, you've got to order pizza when you were planning an event. But I did it now. I've been there. I've done it. And nobody was any the worse for wear.
So every once in a while in hospitality, there comes a true crisis that there's really no way around. One of my winners that I did not once, but twice, where Mom asked me to bring rice to Sabbath. Yeah. And I was like making dessert and something else. So typically I was like doing stuff. And rice is the thing that you leave for the last minute and it takes no thought. Like, you don't need to be like...
But it's like 40 cups of rice or something huge that you would have to do, right?
4 cooked cups is what you're talking about. Yeah,
like
it was a lot of rice. But it was still... I have a big rice cooker. So it's not like a complicated endeavor to make the rice. But 2 times I didn't remember that I was supposed to bring the rice until we got in the car to leave, and I'm like bringing the starch main body of the dinner like we're having curry or something, and I just decided to not do it. And so both times we called Panda Express but however much you pay for like 12 gallons of white rice as opposed to if you just made the dang cheapest food in the world by yourself. But no, twice we had to go hit Panda Express on our way.
Well, and the pizza event, it's a low pressure crowd because they're all really enthusiastic college kids. They're fine with pizza. It's fine, Yeah. They were fine, but you do feel like a bit of a cheeser as a hostess.
People usually are fine.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. The hospitality is a weird compulsion to think people aren't going to be fine.
Yeah, a number of the students were like, oh, you should have served it to us. It would have been fine. I was like, no, it wasn't fine. Like,
you don't know how not fine that was.
Real bad. Anyway, so then
real bad.
We got through another soup night last night, and I'm proud to say that there was, in fact, soup at the soup night. And, So I felt like it was kind of a redemption soup. We
Yeah.
had humble soup and then redemption soup. So.
Yeah, redemption from your humility.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was
Well, those-
fine. It's the times where you thank the Lord for pizza.
I've said this
Pizza
before, probably
men
on here, but those
who
whatever
make it.
those is it Reezers, the frozen dinner rolls? Is it
Isn't it like Rhodes?
Rhodes? Why am I saying Reezers? What's that?
Isn't that those chocolate caramel things?
What? Are you thinking of Rolos?
No, Reese's or something like that.
I don't know what I'm thinking of. Rhodes dinner rolls. Those are the ones that if ever you make a Rhodes dinner roll, people will ask you for the recipe. And it's especially good when you do it in a time of crisis. I remember hearing a story of a woman who would make her own spaghetti sauce to great lengths and pains, according to the family traditions.
Yeah.
And she would do that and found it to be a real investment of self.
Yeah.
And then one time broke down in humility and bought Prego or something.
Yeah.
And that her husband just wouldn't stop raving about how much better her sauce was. And she started crying at the dinner table because he's like, I just want to say that this is the best sauce you've ever made. It's unbelievable. And she's like, because she apparently had that kind of a day where you decide, what the heck, I'll buy a jar.
Yeah.
But we had some nieces and nephews who went on a strike against spaghetti, where they were couldn't handle a spaghetti for a while. And I remember we were talking about it. It's like, I don't know what happened because they used to really like it. And I was like, well, are you buying fancier spaghetti sauces? And they had moved up into the sauces that parents enjoy more.
Artisanal sauces?
And they tried going back to Prego or something. And the kids, the love renewed. The kids were like, we love spaghetti. My kids love spaghetti. Spaghetti is even though you can make really good sauces and homemade pasta and all that, the real main point of having spaghetti in the routine for me is that it takes approximately no preparations and you can have a hot filling meal that everyone likes in approximately no time.
Yeah, exactly. If you can always have noodles in the pantry, and you can always have hamburger in the freezer,
and you can always have a jar of Prego. And we've started buying the shaky cheese just for such times, just because we're already eating Prego.
Yeah,
because it's like a flashback to my own childhood where you have a shaky Parmesan on hand.
I like that our theme today appears to be cheap cheese.
If I had said, Becca, let's get together and podcast about cheap cheese, we would have been hard, but turns out we have a lot of subject matter.
How about humility and cheap cheese?
Cheap cheese and cheap...
humble pie.
How about cheap cheese and humble pie? But on the other hand, sometimes we eat nice cheese.
Indeed. We appreciate nice cheese.
Just trust us on that, guys. Trust us. We sometimes eat good cheese.
I just think that, there's something about the foods that, if you think about kind of our national favorite foods, burgers and pizza, and just you think the most basic things, they do have a smooth melt of the cheese on them.
I have to bring this up just because you're reminding me of it. So back in my olden days, when I was into cooking in a different way that I'm into cooking now. Back when I know I've mentioned this before, but I remember tearing out a recipe for little lemon souffles that are cooked in the Meyer lemon rind.
You should do it this year for Christmas.
It was very beautiful. It was a little beautiful lemon with the cut top lying beside it with the fresh lemon stem.
Of course, yeah.
And so it made 3 lemon souffles, and it only had 75 steps there, and you have to serve it immediately.
Of course you do.
It's a souffle, so it's touchy, it's finicky. You have to do it at the last minute. But those were the recipes that sang to me, the ones that I'd be like, yes, this looks practical. And then I can remember things that we did, and some of them are, it's not that I won't repeat them or I would never do this, but I remember one time for a shower that we made a bazillion orange bowls, Like really thin sliced oranges and lemons and limes.
Okay.
Like simmered in sugar water and then frozen into frozen bowls.
Whoa.
That you would serve something else in there. Whatever. What I'm saying is not like no prep involved. Right. It was things that took more shenanigans than really makes sense.
A little more elegant.
And when I was asked to do things like bring a carrot cake somewhere, I would be like, but carrot cake is so rectangular.
Passe.
It's so rectangular. It's so just sort of...
It's like I can't do an interesting installation.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that you really meant to ask me to do something so very drab. Now, I have to say, just to round this discussion out, it's not that I was a world-class pastry chef. It was that what intrigued me was that. It was not, it was not that everything I was making was stunning. It's that I wanted everything I was making to be stunning.
When I had to do carrot cakes of yore, well, I still do this because now I'm just in the habit.
The truth comes out.
I wouldn't ever do a rectangular carrot cake. I would make layers and I would frost it like that so that it at least had a little more something going on than slab cake.
I myself chose the direction of using a rectangular cake, but trimming it into a double high rectangular cake, frosting it, and making some kind of a wrapping of candied carrot peels.
I remember that. I remember that.
A bow or a ribbon of candied carrot peels. Why, though, guys? Why? Because when people ask you to make a carrot cake, that's not what they needed.
One time I did like teeny little round tall carrot cakes, but I didn't do a muffin tin because I didn't want it to be a traditional cupcake.
It can't look like a cupcake.
So I cut them and I stacked them and then frosted them like that, and then did little marzipan, like a little carrot top and little green carrot marzipan stems.
Anything to avoid a 9x13.
So that it looked like a small carrot was growing in the top of it.
This is why you can... This is why you can see the work of the Lord in our lives.
This is why I'm a little ashamed of my Velveeta soup.
This is also why the Lord seems to have said to me, so you think that's neat, do you? Try feeding 9 people 3 times a day and see how cute you are about it in a little while. Instead of your once a year pie fling that I was having.
The way God works in our lives, I suspect that we'll have to come back around. We'll have
totally, because I already have to do
our practical side.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I have I've turned into the person. This is why it was such a humbling thing for me when I had a bad attitude, the same attitude actually that I had about rectangular carrot cake. I had about Texas sheet cakes. But it was a little worse because at least I enjoyed the taste of a good carrot cake.
Right.
But a sheet cake, I had zero affection for a Texas sheet cake. And I understand now that there are lots of good ones. My exposure had been limited, and I judged. Yeah. And if you have a rumply pan and you're doing a thin cake, the likelihood of over baking it and drying it is high, and that no amount of quick icing recovers you from that.
No.
So I did not like Texas sheet cake. But for some reason, the Lord brought me to such a point when I thought I should just be man enough to make a rectangular cake. This is now many years ago, but I bought a rectangular cake pan. Not a 9x13, but like I use a lot of these cake pans in baking for crowds because I get a bigger size and it will fit a bigger lasagna. Like it's probably like a 13x15 or something, you know, it's one of those. And so I had seen in the Cooking Light, like our best recipes ever, there was a Texas sheet cake that actually looked good to me. Like when I saw the picture, I was like, that actually looks like a flavorful cake.
Sure.
Like it didn't look like the things I fear most about a Texas sheet cake. And somehow Texas sheet cakes, maybe do they always flour the pan? Because I think typically you can taste a real layer of the flour on the bottom.
Seems like it, and it also seems like it comes off in sedimentary layers.
It turns kind of gray, like the chocolate, whatever. The point is, I thought, you know what I should do? I'll be man enough to do this. And I made the Texas sheet cake. And this is how the Lord gave me the signals on the road. I don't think I've ever been... I mean, it's probably everyone's favorite thing I ever make.
Everybody loves
sheet cake.
My kids request it now for
their birthdays.
Yeah.
Like, I make this sheet cake, and the whole world is like Lizzie's Texas sheet cake.
Yeah.
That's like, it's actually probably got my name attached to it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's because the Lord wanted to permanently affix my name to a Texas sheet cake, and he wanted me to know that was good. Like, that was like, you know what, actually it's better to make a rectangular boring cake with rumply frosting that all the kids cheer when they see you coming in with it than coming in with your tidbits of
fanciful
marzipan
things.
Like you're something that's like, look at this, aren't you impressed, kids? And they're like, no, I prefer the work you did with a slab and a spatula. Like,
I know.
All right,
and of course, it's not always an either or. You can also make good food that the people love. You know, that also looks pretty.
But my sheet cake, now pretty. I stand by it. It sometimes it's pretty.
No, I know. I'm just saying. It's not like you have to have ugly.
Also,
food
this particular sheet cake is boss levels of delicious with toasted pecans on top of it.
Oh, really?
But boy, does that let the kids down. If you put a toasted pecan upon it, they're all like, we had a perfectly good thing going.
I have a hot tip right now, right in the midst.
Break in and
share
it.
This is the only reason I'm going to say it now because I won't remember.
Okay.
The toasted pecans is how I got here in my mind.
Okay.
If you need a flashbang dessert that takes no time or effort, for adults, don't serve it to the kids. Drambuie, that liquor that is strangely,
it's like so sweet.
It's sweet.
Very honey.
It's got a honey.
It's very
thing going.
honey.
But if you have Drambuie, I wouldn't necessarily go buy a bottle for this. You know, you could get one of those little tester size ones, but vanilla ice cream, put some Drambuie over the top,
toasted pecans,
and toasted slivered almonds, like the slivered ones, toast it, and then pour them hot over the ice cream and Drambuie, and it kind of like sizzles and is incredible. Like, it really is.
That.
It's a really
Mom
good
makes
meld.
There's some kind of a gingerbread that then she pokes all over and pours Drambuie on it, and that can be just appallingly good.
I don't know if I've had that.
It's really good.
But anyway, that's my inter-segment tip right there.
A tip for the end at the middle.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think, I feel like I've had to get over myself on a number of
because
a number of recipes.
Getting over ourselves is like, that's like the meaning of sanctification. Like, continue to get over yourself.
Get over
yourself
all the way to heaven. Get over yourself.
Which I already false alarmed you all about my book coming out, but it is actually happening, and believe it or not, actually is.
That's awesome.
I know. So just wanted to tell you, in spite of the fact,
come. You can
I
pre-order.
think its official release on Amazon is not until January 1st, but Canon is sending them by Christmas if you order through Canon.
Your thing though about tearing out your recipe of the little lemon souffles, made me remember that sometime when I was probably 13, I was copying down recipes while we were staying at Granddad and Grandma's house over Thanksgiving or something. I was like looking at
getting a jump start.
I think it must have been at Christmas, because I think somebody gave me recipe cards for Christmas, and I was like,
well, get this done.
I better fill them out, you know. And so I started looking through her like Victoria magazines or some such thing. And I began to copy down recipes that I felt like
you gave me a big flashback of us trying to make violet jelly out of Victoria.
I'll tell
you. Go ahead though and finish.
Yeah, because I have a thing about that. But anyway, I was writing them down. You know, the stuff that I felt like when I'm grown someday, I'm gonna need this. I'm gonna need this thing, and I still have those recipe cards in my recipe box. And I thought of this the other day because I totally died when I was looking through for something, and I found one of those old ones from my 13-year-old stint. And it was for some kind of hot rum punch that you serve flaming in a in like a big punch bowl, and I was
you're like practical.
I'm gonna need that.
I'm gonna need to get this laid away for the future.
I think it had like a really beautiful Christmas photo. Of
a flaming bowl of punch.
Yeah,
I
was like,
no.
But I just thought of that the other day, and I was like, I actually should go back and look at that because
it
might actually turn out that my 13-year-old self was onto something with that one.
When I was a child, no, not when I was a child. Recently, I was given some of the.
When I was a child, no, just now.
I was actually joking about you. I wasn't saying when I was a child. Whatever. I got some of Grandma's recipe cards, like the random divvy of the random box after she passed away.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them are things that I'm not sure they ever did or anyone wants. Like lots of them. And I threw away the ones that were irrelevant. Like this matters not to anyone.
Right.
But I saved the ones that I thought I might eventually make. And one of them is written, I wonder if it was from her mom maybe. So our great grandma. But it is written on a hotel stationery. And it is a hotel that advertises itself as being fireproof. Still, it's like the hotel is still saying that it's like not a death trap for fire. It's kind of what it's saying
on the hotel station.
On that, like it was cutting edge,
it?
Like it was a cutting edge, non-fire laden hotel.
Did you Google it and find out if it's still there?
No, but the awesome thing is it's really close to my potato roll recipe. Oh. It's like almost the same one, except for it's called refrigerator rolls, and it includes a time where you throw them in the fridge for as long as you need them in the fridge. I haven't done it yet, but because I'm always making too big of batches of rolls, so I don't need an interlude. You have to have quite a lot of fridge to put that much roll in the fridge for a minute, so I don't do that. But
that is funny though.
But I was like, wow.
I feel like you should check that hotel and discover if it burned or not.
A quick fireproof hotel.
It sounds a little bit like the Titanic to me.
It wasn't because I think it was in that era where there was that time when fires were the main problem happening, and then before they had any kind of like sprinkler systems when it was just much more likely that the hotel would go up in flames.
Probably when they were all smoking in their bedrooms.
And using oil lamps. Maybe they weren't at that time, but I mean there's that kind of thing. It's like much more likely.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I need to make that sometime. And I also have a few recipes in my box that like one that Lena wrote when she was like 4 or something for chicken on the bone.
That's cute.
It's her favorite meal.
No, the violet jelly though, I remember we had a bunch of violets that would grow in our side yard, and there was this recipe for violet jelly, and it's such a beautiful color. Like it is an incredibly beautiful color. Mm-hmm. But we would go out and
unbecomingly soap-like in flavor.
Well, it's because we would go out and pick all those violets, but we never had enough for the full recipe. At least I've tried it several times, like in my life. And you would pick and pick violets and not have enough. And it involves like violets and lime and sugar and gelatin, I think.
Yeah.
And so we would try to have the recipe and
you can't do that.
Half of the gelatin packet, and it would come out like just violet
blobs.
Syrup.
But it would just be like little blobs of...
But it really is a stunningly pretty color. And I would kind of like to go back to it.
The flavor is unfortunately soap-like.
I only remember it not setting up right. I remember it as a possibly good idea if it had set up.
I could think in context it could be good somewhere.
Maybe on one of your little lemon souffles.
Ooh.
A dollop of jelly.
This was an era, I tell people, this is the era that makes me feel really old. Because... when you tell kids, you're like, well, it was before the internet.
Right.
And you're like, that's an amazing thing that we were humans before the internet. But the funny part was when like a Martha Stewart article would come by about how to care for your marble countertops. You thought, what if I end up with someone I don't know how to care for them? Better tear that out. Yeah. Better tear that out and save it. Better keep it now.
Get a binder and sheet protectors.
That's what I had. I still have a binder and sheet protectors, except for I use it for my other stuff.
I found one of my old notebooks of sheet protectors.
I ditched them. Was it funny? Was all the stuff in there
It was
hilarious?
A bit funny. Yeah, it was a bit not as
I
relevant.
got rid of stuff as I went. Like, I don't know why that appealed to me ever. This is why I think we should all act on your ideas, because like if you have fabric that you really love, do something with it while you still love it.
True. Because
sometimes you're like, this fabric is so good. I love it so much. It's too precious to use.
Yeah.
And then you come back to it and you're like, what? Like, this does nothing for me. So I think it's important to like live in the moment with those things that you like. Like when you think that an elaborately decorated sugar cookie looks really cool, do it.
Make it now.
Do it. And then later you can laugh at yourself for having done it instead of like, my life is full of all these things I used to think would be cool to do and I never did a dang one.
Yeah. Now I'm old and jaded.
Now I'm old and all I do is sneer at things instead of saying, in my day, you know, like, you got to get in there and candy that carrot peel so you can try to fashion a gift wrap out of it for your carrot cake.
Sort of basket weave, maybe.
Yeah. Ooh,
over the top.
That would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Should have done that. Should have done it.
Exactly. So the holidays are fast coming upon us, and I feel
and
like
we're all becoming spiritually unfit.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, once again, we could have our sort of, our holiday admonition to not be a fink to everyone.
Oh, man, but the reality is
we do that every other week.
You get so many chances.
Oh, yeah, you will. You will.
I have to say, I just was talking with a friend about this, and I think it's really funny. But she was saying, what do you say when someone says, you're so amazing, I don't know how you do it all?
Okay,
or something like that.
Start over.
So say someone says
to you. A friend asked you about
a friend was asking me, what do you do when someone says, you're so amazing, I can't believe how you get all this done, or kind of like, I could never get all this done. It's a weird conversation.
Well, because there's two roads you can go by. But in the long run,
I'd like to try to not go on either.
Should I quote Led Zeppelin, or no, I'll just keep moving past that. However, the point here is you can go the road of like, oh, no, I don't.
I don't. Would you like me to show you how messy the coat closet is?
Or you could say, well, I give all the glory to God for my amazing behavior.
I was telling her,
neither one of those is very helpful.
I was telling her that I don't actually go for the question at all. And the reason that I don't is this. When someone says, you're so amazing, I don't know how you do it all, what I'm hearing is not that. What I'm hearing is more, that's the socially acceptable way of saying, I don't want to do what you're doing at all.
Not always.
But oftentimes it is, because the subtext is, every once in a while someone is like, I love this and I actually want to know the details of how do you do this.
Yeah, sure.
And in that case, a serious answer is deserved.
Sure,
with like, oh, well, the reality is it's not easy. And I never did have, it's not like I counted the cost of how much grace I was going to need to have a parish group or a soup night or something and said, yes, I can afford it. No. I have all this on hand. What we really do a lot of is, this is like counter every kind of good financial move. We do a lot of committing to the Lord's good credit. Where you're like, you know what? If I feel like we're called to do this, we trust God to pay the balance. And in His name, we say, yes, I'll do it. And we have lots of opportunities in the course of your life. You have tons of opportunities to need the Lord's grace for it in action, which is why it's so weird to tell someone who's maybe at your house for a big event, no, this was actually a real spiritual struggle for me, but the Lord pulled through at the end.
You don't want to do that.
That would be super weird. Can you pause it for a second?
Let me try and pause this, guys. We'll see how we do.
Anyways, what I'm saying is, it's not like you can tell your guests, oh, huge struggle. Do you know how much I didn't want you to come today? And not that you should, and not that I'm not saying that because I feel that way all the time. No. I'm saying that the reality is, you don't get into things because you thought you were awesome enough to do it. And if you do, you are bound to failure.
Yeah, you are.
If you go into it thinking, I've got this handled because I'm on it, it is just going to be a fail. But if you're actually actively depending on the Lord and thinking, no, I think we're called to this. I think we can do this. You know, like, if you're doing that, then it's not really like you're getting, when someone says, you're so amazing, you really shouldn't be taking the credit for it.
No.
Because it's like, no, I'm not. But, like, sometimes people say, well, I could never. I'm like, well, if you needed to, you could.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If the Lord actually called you to be hospitable, you could be hospitable. That's how it is. Like,
although, let's be frank, God did call you to be hospitable. That's one of the things in the Bible.
He did, but I think I meant, they may be thinking, it may be very different kinds of hospitality.
Completely
so
different,
I meant,
yeah.
but my point is just that typically when people say that, it is just a more acceptable way. Your people are saying, wow, I don't want to do this kind of thing.
Well, I think that this actually sort of ties in with Christmas in a way here, but like what you're saying is basically often you have to step out in faith thinking, I don't know if we can afford this, but we're going to do it anyway. And afford in the sense of the time, the energy,
grace-wise,
the
kind
input,
of like,
the grace, the whatever it is, like we're just going to do it anyway and trust God. But I think that generosity in general should be that way. I think that often people are incredibly stingy with what they're willing to give.
Yeah.
And
because they're like, we can only give when we know we can fully afford it.
Right.
In all the ways.
Right. And it shouldn't ever stretch us.
And actually part of giving is that you shouldn't be able to afford it. And we're not talking strictly financially here. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But we do actually have, like often people will say, we could never have 7 kids.
Right.
Because we could not have done that. We could not do that. And that always is so funny because it's very much like people saying, I couldn't do this, whatever kind of thing that you're in the middle of doing. And the reality is just that we don't have 7 kids because Luke and I sat down one time
with a spreadsheet. And
we were like, look, we totally have the spiritual, mental capacity and financial capacity to manage, we think 7. Well, 7 is the number that we can totally handle. And up until that point, of course, we can handle it. And after that, we can no longer handle it.
Right.
Like, that's not how we got there. Like, you get there by relying on the Lord in what He calls you to do. And if God gave us, when God gave us a 7th baby, we knew God could afford it.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, the Lord wouldn't have done this.
Which is not to say that you should just act in great reckless disregard of all of your resources all the time. It's not that. It's just
it's just a major balance issue because I think people are way more inclined to count the cost beforehand than we are to be too reckless on God's supplying.
Yes.
Because even the people that we would think, wow, that seemed reckless on God supplying, God is so very kind and generous, and He loves people who are depending on Him. And that is if you're going to get in a ditch one way or another, recklessly depending on the Lord is full of all the saints over there. Like, that's where you are with a lot of missionaries, with a lot of, that's a bold faith place to be.
And that's not if it's sort of like, I stepped out in faith and I bought my husband a Porsche for Christmas because I knew he would like it.
Well, there's a fundamental difference between throwing yourself into building the kingdom of God and His work here, trusting that He will provide for what He has said He will provide for.
And I think there's lots of places that applies because there's times when you have to say something like, okay, I'm convicted that I need to be a mother at home with the children. I don't know how we're going to afford that, but we think that it's obedient to God, so we're going to act in faith.
We're going to trust God to provide for us. Yeah.
Or we are convinced that we actually should be providing the education for our children, and we don't know how we're going to afford that, but we're going to step out in faith and we're going to
trust God to make the ends meet in a Christian education.
And it might be like, we really think we need to invite these people over, for dinner. Yeah. We're not really sure how we're going to make that work, but we think that we need to do it, and so we're going to trust God on it. It's like big and small things. It's not like I really felt like I needed this new coat.
I want to just say that in our own couples, in our life, we didn't ever have that moment about having a child. We had the clarity that God gives you of when you're pregnant, you already know the answer, right? So so that's different. Like, I just wanted to clarify that there is a way that I think it's completely appropriate for a couple to feel like we have as many as we can. I have no objection to that. My point is just that idea that you are counting your own grace and provisions to do something when it's like acting like you have grace independent of God anyways. Like, or that you have spiritual understanding independent of that relationship from God. I think
what you're talking about is, like, I think what we're saying is there's times when you feel like obedience is over there, but I can't afford it, so I'm going to have to stay here where I am. Mm-hmm. And that's the stuff where we're saying, no, go over there and trust God.
Go to where you're supposed to be. Because
if you know where obedience lies, go that direction, regardless of whether your little spreadsheet of your resources sort of looks like it's going to line up.
And there's so much, Christians are quick to get on board with the ideas of like Dave Ramsey type ideas. You know what I mean? Like, be a good steward and God wants you to do this. But it's one of these things that I think Christians are way more inclined to sin in being uptight stewards of their finances, as though their finances really belonged to them in that way, then they are likely to be so generous that that's the signature. That's that John Bunyan quote about there was a man, some thought him mad, the more he gave, the more he had. and that's the thing, is that God gives you gifts that you might give them. Like, he provides you with things that you might share it, and that total trust that you're getting all of your blessings from God is what makes you generous.
Yep.
Like, what makes you generous is this knowledge that what God is giving to me, he expects me to give to others, and not like, not like God gave it to me for me to hoard it.
Right, and we know that's not true. And I feel like this is maybe a weird application of the verse, but the verse that says, don't prepare what you're going to say, trust God for the words. I think that's kind of what we're saying, is if you know that God has asked something of you, but you don't see how it's going to work, that's where you can step out in faith, knowing God will provide the means for it to happen. God's doing it.
Yeah. Right. And that means that when you're doing what you're doing, you are doing it. It's very much, everything about it is to the glory of God. Because you're like, this was never about me stewarding my time in such a way that I was going to be amazing. This is about God accomplishing something through our meager efforts.
Right.
And that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Like, we're building a house, as you know. We're building a house right now, and it's super exciting, and I love it, and the whole process is really fun. But a big part of what has been fun and exciting and wonderful about it has been seeing God making things happen because we know why we're asking for it. Like, that we're asking for this thing because we want to use it, and we want to use it really hard. Mm-hmm. And that God is providing above and beyond what we were even asking for, which gives you, at the same time as it's like, oh my word, I'm so excited about this. Like, this is so fun. It gives you that feeling in your stomach that is also like, you just know why God is giving this to you. You know what I mean? Like, I know he is giving it to us in an answer to our prayers, and also in a we just know that this is for us to use really a lot.
Yeah.
And that it's just a wonderful thing, because it's like, it is not, I go up there and I'm like, oh my word, it's a big kitchen, it's a big dining room, it's a big hall, it's just like a lot of aspects of this house are blowing me away. Mm-hmm. And oh my word, and the view, all of it, I love it. But at the same time, I know that God is giving that to us because of why we wanted it, and because we've asked that. What we are asking the Lord for is a home where we can provide for our children and their children, in a different way, where we can be
And I think you have to think of those things that God gives you as tools to use to build the kingdom, instead of little bits of treasure to put in your own treasure house.
Yeah, because I think, and we were laughing about this, the views are really beautiful from our house, and we have big windows. which I love. And I told Luke, I was like, I get the feeling that God just really wants us to keep our eyes on the big picture at this house. Like, and it makes me laugh so hard because you all probably know, and well, you probably don't all know. I think I said it in Loving the Little Years. There was a time when the twins were nursing infants, and my other girls were like 3 and 2, and then the 2 nursing infants, and it was winter. So we were in this like little house cooped up all the time. And at that time I really wanted to start smoking because
I think you have said this before.
I've said it, but I wanted to because we would drive somewhere and I would see people out on their porch by themselves. That was the key. By themselves on a porch smoking, like, and it looked like, wow, I need to do that. That looks so good. Like they're sitting in the dark alone in a coat going like, and I was like, yep, that looks good. I didn't give in and I didn't start smoking. But we joke because the way we kind of messed with the layout of this house, there's a little porch kind of off of the kitchen. It's like a back hall. There's a little porch, and we've joked like that's the smoking porch. When our children are there with our 37 grandchildren and the chaos is around us, we'll step out on the smoking porch and take a little minute.
You just need to have it be a hidden door.
Yeah.
It's like, where's Grandma?
That door locks from the outside.
That's a good idea.
Grandma and Grandpa went out on the porch and locked the door.
Taking a quick smoke.
They're having a minute in the smoking porch.
That's
but
funny.
We laugh about this, but the reality is we hope that at that house God equips us to do more and more of the things that have been hard for us already. Mm-hmm. Like we're saying, these are things that are challenging. This is sanctifying, and we have been asking the Lord to equip us in these. I don't want to say trials because it's blessings at the same time, but
hard work.
In this work to equip us in this labor to do more and more of this kind of labor that will have bigger and bigger impacts, and that's what we see Him doing for us, which is a really funny. It's a combination of we see God providing for something that we know will be like, in many ways, going through a spiritual wood chipper. And I love it. Think that God is in no way done. Like, He has things to push us on.
Yeah.
He has
and
things.
Each person has their own totally different path that they are on, and the tools God is giving you are completely different.
Yeah.
Because He's asking something different of each of us.
Totally. And Lena and I had a moment. Lena's my 14-year-old. The other day where we were laughing about having, I don't know, it's like we were tired and had headaches, but we had a lot to do for getting ready for something. And I was laughing. I said, when we're in our beautiful new house, we're going to feel just like this sometimes. And she was like, no. She's like, it's going to be different though, Mom. It will be different there. And I was like, it will be different, but it will be just like this. Like, it will be just like the spiritual work of dealing with all the coats and boots and things at the front door. We'll be doing the same thing there.
Exactly.
It'll be amazing.
Yep.
Anyways, that's your bulletin from what have you.
So, I gave a tip. What's your tip?
To be
generous.
No, what I was going to say is you approach your holiday foods. Think of the things that get the people the most joy. Mm-hmm. Like the things that are not about what makes you look like the best executor of holidays, but
I thought knowing that sometimes, because God works in every direction, sometimes what is going to give people the most joy is going to require you to exert yourself more than you really feel like.
Maybe, but one of the things I was so
dial
pleased.
It down.
You were not here the first Sabbath of Advent, but what I did that was happy for me is I have this grievance against gingerbread houses, and partly just because I don't want to look at the dang things around the house. So I was really pleased because the twins wanted the gingerbread boys again for their birthday, and so when they did that, I made a huge recipe of the gingerbread cookies. Okay. And then I did a bunch of them cut in houses of different sizes and some trees. And then I baked them and put them in the freezer. So they were all in the freezer in their houses and things. And I made a bunch of little squares. I used a square cookie cutter or biscuit cutter or something, little squares, and I did a bunch of little squares. And so then for Sabbath, I got them out and had the kids frost them all, and we stood them up. We used the little squares. I made a thick icing to do the supports, and we stood them all up on the cutting board like a little Christmas village, but it was dessert for that night, so it was gone. We did it, we saw it, and we got rid of it all in one day. And I was like, that might be the best thing ever. Like, nailed it.
That's awesome.
That was happy because I haven't been buying those gingerbread house kits because I don't like them.
Okay.
But Blair was one who was like, we never do gingerbread houses. And I'm like, oh, I let that lapse too many years such that she doesn't really recall having done that.
Yeah.
So we did it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, everyone, have fun with all of your mayhem. And we will hopefully have another podcast next week.
Talk to you next time.
Bye.
I'm a 2009 graduate of New St. Andrews College, and I'm a commercial property manager.
3 kids at Logos, 1 at home still, and I do flowers on the side out of our house. When you have these little people that you're responsible to shepherd, you realize I need to know what I'm talking about because they need to have a firm foundation and they need deep roots so that they don't get blown over and that they're ready to stand up for the truth.
I am a programmer. The language aspect of NSA is a fantastic preparation for any sort of programming.
I'm a real estate broker here in town. I think absolutely the perfect education for being in sales of really any kind.
I actually put it to a lot of great use when I was working in the political realm.
I am a pastor in Central Coast, California. Whatever vocation you take, it'll make you take that seriously because you're seeing it through the lens of the sovereignty and lordship of Christ.
To learn more, visit us online at nsa.edu.